6 kids, 1 stolen boat, and an ocean that had absolutely no interest in being fair. In the summer of 1965, a group of teenage boys from a boarding school in the South Pacific made a decision so reckless it should have gotten them killed. It almost did. Instead, it turned them into something none of their teachers, their parents, or even they themselves could have predicted. What happened next was not a disaster story. It was something rarer and harder to explain. A story about what regular people actually do when the world drops out from underneath them and nobody is coming to help. They were students at a strict Catholic school called St. Andrew's College on the island of Tonga Tapu in Tonga. 6 boys, ranging in age from 13 to 16, living inside a system of rules that felt more like a cage than an education. The oldest was Sione, 16, quiet but solid as a rock. Then there was Stefan, the one who would later need saving more than he knew. Kolo, the musician of the group, the kid who always had rhythm in him even when everything else around him was falling apart. Then Sione F, Mono, and the youngest, David, just 13 years old, barely a teenager, already completely convinced he was ready for absolutely anything the world could throw at him. They had all grown up on Ha'api, a smaller island in the Tongan chain, where the ocean was not some mysterious force, but just the way life worked. Salt in the air, fish on the table, boats that rocked you to sleep if you let them. But boarding school had yanked them out of all that and dropped them hard into schedules and silence and the slow suffocation of sitting still in a classroom when your whole body wants to be somewhere else doing something real. If you have ever been a teenage boy with nowhere to put your energy, you already understand exactly what happened next. The resentment builds up like pressure inside something sealed too tight. Eventually, something has to give. And it did, in a way nobody planned for. The plan started as a shared fantasy and graduated into a dare. They would steal a boat, push out on the open ocean, and disappear somewhere that actually sounded like freedom. Fiji, maybe. New Zealand, if the wind was being generous. The specifics were honestly not the point. The point was out, away, gone, free, anywhere the school could not reach them. They had their eye on a boat belonging to a local fisherman named Tanyena Uhila, a man they did not particularly like, which made the whole thing feel just a little bit more satisfying than it already did.
One evening they did it, slipped down to the water in the fading light, untied the boat, and pushed off into the harbor like they owned the night. Nobody stopped them. Nobody even noticed. 6 kids, a borrowed fishing boat, and the entire Pacific Ocean stretching out ahead of them. They had brought 2 bags of bananas, a few coconuts, and a gas burner. That was it. No compass, no map, no backup plan, no real understanding of what they were actually sailing into. Just that electric buzzing feeling in your chest when you have done something you absolutely cannot take back. For a little while, it was exactly what they had imagined. The sky was dark and clear, the boat moved through the water easy, the night air felt like real freedom against their skin. One by one, rocked by the rhythm of the sea, the boys fell asleep. All of them, at the same time, on the open Pacific Ocean in a stolen fishing boat with no one at the helm. You already know this was not going to end well. The storm came out of nowhere the way Pacific storms do, fast and mean and completely uninterested in their situation. The ocean went from manageable to murderous in what felt like minutes. Waves crashed over the sides and soaked everything. The wind screamed through the rigging. David, the youngest, the only one who actually knew anything about sailing, grabbed at the sail just as the wind tore it to pieces like it was made of paper. Then the rudder snapped. Direction was gone. The boat stopped being a vessel and started being a small piece of floating wreckage with 6 terrified kids clinging to whatever they could reach. They drifted for 8 days, 8 full days on the open Pacific with no food, no clean water, and no idea where they were going. Thirst on the ocean is one of the cruelest feelings that exists. Water in every single direction, all of it completely undrinkable,
every wave a reminder of exactly what you cannot have. When rain came, they caught it in coconut shells and rationed it with the kind of strict discipline that would have genuinely impressed the priests back at school. 1 sip in the morning, 1 sip at night. That was the entire system. They tried fishing, but the ocean was not feeling generous. Hunger and thirst and salt and sun and the grinding ache of muscles clenched too long. That was life on that drifting wreck. On the 8th day, they saw it. An island on the horizon, barely a dark smudge at first, then slowly taking shape. They had no idea what it was called and honestly did not care. They pointed what was left of their boat at it and drove it straight into the rocks. The boat smashed apart. They got cut up and battered pretty good, but they made it. They dragged themselves onto the rocky beach of a place called Ata Island, completely done, bleeding in several places, and utterly finished with the ocean for the foreseeable future.
Getting fully ashore took about a day and a half. The ocean does not let go of people gracefully, even when it is done with them. When they finally collapsed on solid ground, they were too exhausted to feel anything except the plain fact that they were not dead. They found a cave, crawled inside, and passed out cold. Here is where most survival stories start getting ugly. The food runs out and people start turning on each other. The stress compounds and cracks appear, and before long you've got a real-life Lord of the Flies situation playing out right in front of you. That is what everyone expects. That is not what happened here, not even close. What happened here should make you rethink everything you assume about how people behave when things get desperate enough. Sione and Stefan, the two oldest, naturally stepped up as leaders. Not the loud, controlling kind, the quieter, harder kind. Competence, patience, the willingness to make a call even when every option looks bad. One handled the practical side, figuring out what needed to happen and who would do it. The other kept the emotional temperature from spiking out of control. They prayed together every single day, not because prayer builds shelters or finds clean water, but because ritual keeps people sane when everything around them is actively trying to make them lose it. They barely knew anything about wilderness survival. These were school kids from a populated island, not trained wilderness experts. But they figured things out fast because they had no other option. They found a rocky overhang and turned it into shelter. They hollowed out tree trunks to collect rainwater, which sounds clever until you realize it took days to get even a small amount worth drinking. When desperate enough, they climbed the cliffs to hunt seabirds and ate the meat raw because they had no fire. They drank blood when water got really scarce. No glamour in this part whatsoever, just grim and necessary and completely real. Fire was the thing they needed most, not just for cooking or warmth, but for a signal visible from any passing ship. Every single day they tried. They rubbed sticks together until their hands were raw and wrecked. They got smoke sometimes, tiny, taunting wisps that went nowhere, but never an actual flame. They went to sleep without fire and woke up and tried again the next morning. 6 months. 6 full months of trying every single day and getting absolutely nothing to show for it.
And through all of it, they argued. 6 teenage boys stuck on a rock are always going to argue, probably about the same stupid stuff over and over. But when things got heated, they did not let it escalate into something that would damage the group. They had a rule. When someone got too angry to function, that person walked off alone into the jungle, cooled down, let the anger drain out completely, and came back when they were ready to be useful again. Self-imposed. Nobody could force anyone to do anything out there. They chose it because they understood something that a lot of adults never managed to figure out. The group surviving together was worth more than anyone winning any fight. Kolo built a guitar, scavenged wire from the wrecked boat, found some wood, used a coconut shell for the body, and made an actual playable instrument from scratch on a deserted island. In the evenings, when the work was done and the light bled out of the sky, they sat together and sang. They wrote a song about the island, about the cliffs and the loneliness, and the way time started moving sideways instead of forward. Music did not feed them or keep them warm, but it kept them human in the ways that actually matter. It gave the feeling somewhere to go. Fire finally came after 6 months.
One moment, nothing but wood dust and exhausted hands and the smell of effort going nowhere. Then a spark. Then actual flame licking upward into the air. The boys completely lost it. Screaming, hugging, the good kind of crying that happens when something impossible just showed up right in front of you. From that moment, the fire became the most important thing on the island. They built it a shelter, assigned watchers, moved it carefully whenever needed, treating it like something alive, because it was. They kept it burning until the day they left. It never once went out. With fire came cooked food, real warmth, and a signal visible from the water. Life also got harder in new ways, because stability makes you notice everything you still do not have. Hunting seabirds on the cliff faces was genuinely dangerous work. 2 birds per person per day just to stay functional. One wrong step on a wet ledge and that was going to be it. Then one day Stefan slipped, fell hard and his leg snapped clean. In the standard survival story, this is where Stefan becomes deadweight, too hurt to pull his share, using up resources, slowing everyone down. The strong move on and leave the weak behind. These boys did the complete opposite. They found him, carried him back to camp, set the leg as carefully as they could with branches and strips of cloth. Then every one of them picked up his workload without a single word of complaint. For months, Stefan healed while the others covered for him completely and without hesitation. When he finally stood again and put weight on that leg, it was not just his victory. It belonged to every single one of them.
The island kept surprising them. Pushing deeper into the interior, they found ruins at the top of a ridge, remains of a village abandoned for generations after slave raiders had torn the population away. Near those ruins, they found wild vegetables, still growing after all those years. And then, almost unbelievably, chickens. Real live feral chickens, descendants of birds left behind when the village emptied out decades ago. Hundreds of them, multiplied with nobody to bother them. The boys caught them at night and eventually penned around 200. Eggs every single day. Reliable protein that did not require anyone risking their life on a cliff face. They started thinking in real systems, not just today's food, but what would still be feeding them next month. They built a raft at some point and tried to escape. It came apart about a mile offshore. They swam back, exhausted and humbled. That failure probably saved their lives. The ocean had already shown them once what it was capable of, and nothing about it had changed. As months stacked up and hope got quieter and less urgent, the boys started building like people who might genuinely be there for the rest of their lives. Solid shelters, revived garden plots near the ruins, chores divided into pairs, so nobody was ever truly alone and nobody carried more than their fair share. Daily exercise, because letting your body go soft is just another form of surrender. They even laid out a badminton court and held actual tournaments. A badminton tournament on an uninhabited island in the Pacific. Not because it was practical, because it was human. Because you need something to compete for, even when the prize is just bragging rights among 5 other people stuck in exactly the same situation you are. They found human bones during one search. An old man, probably. One of the last people to have lived on Ata before the island went completely quiet. The boys stopped everything, collected the bones carefully, and gave him a full burial and prayer service. They did not know his name or a single detail of his life, but they gave him the dignity of being acknowledged and properly laid to rest. That detail alone is worth sitting with. On a deserted island, exhausted and hungry, with their own lives still very much in question, they stopped to take care of a stranger who had been dead for decades. That says more about who these kids were than anything else in this story. Back in Tonga, their families had moved through grief and into a kind of flat, quiet acceptance. Funerals had been held. The boys were officially declared dead. Life had kept moving, the way it always does, even when it has absolutely no business doing so.
In September of 1966, 15 months after 6 boys slipped out of that harbor in the dark, an Australian boat called the Two David was moving through those waters. The captain, Peter Warner, was young and restless and never quite fit the life people expected of him. One of his crew thought they heard a human voice from the direction of Ata. Warner figured it was birds, but turned the boat anyway just to check. Closer in, he spotted scorch marks burned high on the rock face. Those marks do not happen by accident. Something deliberate had made fires up there. Then 6 figures hit the water, swimming hard toward the boat with everything they had. Hair past their shoulders, clothes basically gone. wild-looking from a distance. But when they climbed aboard, they spoke clear and steady English. They said they had been on the island for over a year. They had been keeping count on the slate back at camp. When Warner later checked the actual dates, the boys were off by exactly 2 days. 15 months stranded on a rock in the Pacific, and they missed the count by 2 days. That is almost impossible to process. Warner got on the radio to Tonga. The operator on the other end went silent, then emotional. The boys were dead. Everyone knew that. Funerals had happened. The operator's voice reportedly broke when Warner said they were alive and coming home. Except home had a detour first. Taniela Ohila had not forgotten his boat. The law stepped in without hesitation. Theft was theft, regardless of everything that came after it. The boys were arrested. Warner refused to let that be how this story ended. He worked out a deal, a documentary about their survival, with the proceeds going toward the cost of the stolen boat. He paid the difference himself. The boys walked free and went straight into the arms of families who had already grieved and buried them, and somehow had to unhappen all of that. Doctors examined the boys and came back genuinely stunned. Not just that they were alive, though that alone was remarkable enough. Stefan's leg, set with branches by a teenager on a remote cliff island, had healed almost perfectly, nearly full function, barely any permanent damage. The only explanation the doctors could offer was the quality of care he had received from the people around him in the middle of nowhere. The documentary aired on Australian television in 1966. Warner received official fishing rights in Tongan waters from the king himself as a formal reward. The boys scattered after that. Kolo Factito lived until 2017 when he died at 71. The others spread to Australia, New Zealand, and the United States, carrying this story into ordinary lives. Kolo kept the coconut guitar. The song they wrote on Ata still exists today. Ata is still empty. The people torn away by slave raids never came back. The cliffs still stand. The island waits, patient and indifferent, the way islands do.
What stays with you is not the survival itself, though that is genuinely remarkable. It is the specific way they survived. Not by being tougher or meaner or more willing to do whatever it takes, by choosing to build something decent together when absolutely nobody required it. Rules nobody forced on them. Care for each other nobody demanded. A fire they protected not just for warmth, but as proof they still had something worth protecting. Teenage boys who should, by every popular theory about human nature under extreme pressure, have turned on each other completely. They did not. Every single time, they did the exact opposite. The real Lord of the Flies looked nothing like the book. Real kids, real island, real desperation, completely different ending. And that should make you feel something real. Maybe a little uncomfortable about how quickly we assume the worst about people. Maybe genuinely hopeful about what ordinary human beings are capable of when the chips are down, nobody is watching, and the choice is entirely their own. That matters more than most people want to admit. Like the video if this story hit different than you expected. Subscribe for more true stories that go deeper than the surface. There are plenty more out there waiting to be told.